Could Jarvis be the new owner of the Ace Family YouTube channel? That's actually something that could legally happen because there's a lawsuit going on between Jarvis and Austin McBroom. And this is a possibility that the YouTube channel that is for the Ace family could be legally seized by Jarvis as a result of this lawsuit. I'm Kevin Newper. I'm an attorney at Newper & Covey, and I want to talk to you about this very interesting legal question, which kind of comes up when you have one YouTuber seizing or suing another. And one of the biggest assets that Austin McBroom may have is, in fact, his YouTube channel and his brand name. So I did a video about this the other day about what was going on in this lawsuit. This is a lawsuit where Jarvis is saying that he was not paid $1 million fee as part of a boxing match in an event called the Battle of the Platforms. And Jarvis says that Austin McBroom had organized this event. He'd done it kind of in secret, and he hadn't told people, and then he made a bunch of hyped up promises of payments that never happened and was promising this was going to be this huge event, and it just sort of was a dud. And so Jarvis sued. He actually got a default judgment. So a default judgment, or not judgment, he got a default entered. They're kind of a technical legal difference if any lawyers are listening, but he got this, what's called default, which is the judge says, okay, Austin McBroom didn't show up. And so if you don't show up when you get sued, you can just lose automatically. And they started along that process, but then Austin McBroom did at the last minute show up, filed what's called an answer in the lawsuit. And now there is this lawsuit going on. So they're going to fight it out to the end over, does Austin McBroom owe Jarvis $1 million, a little over $1 million, and maybe more if it goes to the end of the lawsuit. Now, we don't really know Austin McBroom's sort of side of this. When he filed his answer, one thing you could do is just kind of deny the allegations generally without actually telling your own story, and that's kind of what happened here. That's not unusual. That's actually pretty common in California where the lawsuit is. So, but we do know that this lawsuit is going forward, and there are kind of rumors that Austin McBroom may not actually have that much money, that he's being sued by some other people. There's people saying that he's had foreclosures, that basically he's had financial troubles, and if you don't have enough money to pay $1 million judgment, well then the plaintiff, if they get that amount of money and more than the judgment, they have to start getting creative trying to find other ways to get money. One of the things people may not know is that, so when a judgment is when you win your lawsuit, you get this kind of order signed by the judge that says, okay, you now owe the plaintiff in this lawsuit whatever amount of money. Say it's $1 million because it'll be around that here. When the plaintiff gets that piece of paper, they can start, or that order, they can start going around and forcing other people to transfer legal control of assets or money or whatever to themselves to start paying off that judgment. Normally you would think, oh, something like, going in and repossessing someone's car. It's not really repossessing, but grabbing the car out of the driveway and saying, now that's my car. And you go to the sheriffs will do that, and if you have the judgment, they'll auction off someone's car. They'll auction off someone's house. They force a foreclosure sale in the house. You can go do something called levying a bank account, which is when you go to the bank and you say, hey, I've got this order from the court. Any money that is in that person's bank account is now mine, hand it over. And there are all these processes for these different kind of things. Well, it doesn't just have to be property like that. It can be what's called intellectual property. So there's a type of property called intellectual property, which means it's something that's not like a physical thing, but that you have legal ownership to. So an example is, as I'm making this YouTube video right now, I instantly get copyright to that. And then I can make filings before the federal government and get sort of better copyright protection. If I go pay a fee and go to the government, you can get sort of more rights. You can file for a trademark with the government, which says, and Austin McBroom's actually done that. I'll talk about that in a minute for this Ace family. A trademark is just the exclusive right to use like a brand name, like Nike, Pepsi, Coca-Cola. Those are all trademark terms. Nobody else can use them. If you use them, those companies have this right from the government to sue. But that is a legal thing that can be, if Coca-Cola went bankrupt, their trademark could get sold. If someone got a judgment of more money than Coca-Cola had, you could go force them to give you their trademark, and there's a separate legal way to do that. You can also own a YouTube channel, and one of the interesting things about YouTube, some places don't allow you to transfer your accounts. YouTube does not have anything in their terms of service about transferring an account to someone else, which means that's a kind of property that, and there's like sales of YouTube accounts sometimes on business flipping websites. The ownership of the YouTube account can change because their terms of service don't say anything that you can't do that. And so that means that is a form of intellectual property. It's not a physical property, but someone owns the Ace Family YouTube channel. we don't know who, and that's kind of probably the key question that Jarvis would need to know. But if Austin McBroom has any kind of ownership interest in the Ace Family YouTube channel, which I would be actually very surprised if he doesn't, either himself or through a corporation, then Jarvis can seize that. Jarvis could literally be the owner of the Ace Family YouTube channel. And you might see, if Austin McBroom really has no money, that might be Jarvis's best bet to go get his $1 million back. You might literally see what I'm pointing to up here, which is the Jarvis Family channel. Like, Jarvis could take control of the channel if he wins this lawsuit. He could start just he could own all the old videos that Austin McBroom had posted to the extent that they were Austin's. I would say, I would just guess, probably Austin McBroom created the channel himself and has not transferred it. Sometimes people do transfer it to a corporation, but if he hasn't moved it around, if he hasn't given rights away before the lawsuit in some kind of a formal assignment, then it's his, and you can't really start doing that stuff after a lawsuit. Once you know the lawsuit's going on, you can't move your assets around. It'll just get undone. And so this is something that if the lawsuit goes to the end, it could happen, and you could, from Jarvis's perspective, that might be great. You got a channel here with around 20 million subscribers. That's very valuable, especially if you are yourself a YouTuber, because Jarvis could go on there and, make a big troll and post whatever he wants. He can dress up like Austin McBroom on his own channel, his former own channel, if it comes to that. He can turn it into the Jarvis Family channel. He can make it a little sitcom with his friends as the Jarvis Family. He can literally, if he gets ownership of that, he can do whatever he wants. And I'm going to walk you through kind of how that legal process works, and whether we end up here, I don't know, because there are multiple steps to this and multiple things that have to happen before that could happen. But it is from a lawyer's perspective, you love these kind of interesting questions about what could happen. Usually, they realistically force a settlement. So if Austin McBroom is staring down the barrel of having his entire social media empire sort of transferred over to this other YouTuber, usually they start getting very desperate to settle and give you something. But Jarvis, sometimes people go, you cheated me. That's what Jarvis is saying, and I don't like you, and I'm just gonna, go at you however I want. And that is also one of the interesting things about lawsuits and judgments, is that when you get a judgment, defendants, the reason they start getting very cooperative when you get close to a judgment is that you can collect that judgment however you want, which is part of why I'm doing this video. Is, how would you want to do this if you were Jarvis? When lawyers are collecting against big companies that are kind of start saying, "Oh, pound sand," that's our phrase, pound sand. It's a nice way of saying, something that you can't really say on kid-friendly videos. When a company tells you pound sand, well, you have this judgment. You don't have to collect on what they want you to. You don't have to go to their bank account. You can collect on whatever you want. So there's some lawyers. One of the common tactics is if a company, I know this happened to Terminex. I think it was Terminex, one of the big termite protection companies, was just refusing to pay when there were judgments against them. And what did the lawyers do when that happened? They just went down to the Terminex offices. They said, "I don't want anything in here but all your computers." And if you're a big company and some lawyer is going down office to office just taking computers, your whole company shuts down. So they paid real quick after that. And that's a common one. If you're looking at a YouTuber, then probably the fastest way to get a legal judgment paid off is to start saying, "I'm going to be the Jarvis family." So let me walk you through how the law and how this works, and what Jarvis would do, why he can do this. Okay, so the first thing Jarvis's lawyers are going to be looking at is, like, who actually owns all this intellectual property, because that's the stuff that's sort of sitting out there that Jarvis could benefit most from. And the first thing I look for, trying to find when you're digging around at people, because lawyers, you do a lot of investigation, is, so you look and see, he's using this name, the Ace Family, is that trademarked? And you look online, this is from the federal government's trademark website, and it actually is trademarked to this company called Ace Hat Collection, which is in California. There are two trademarks, and this one is on sort of phone cases and jewelry and book bags and water bottles, and I don't know why you would have Ace Family water bottles, but lanyards, and then there's another separate trademark on hats. And so from this filing, hey, here's who owns this part of the intellectual property, which is he has put his brand name, Ace Family, into this company, Ace Hat Collection. So as a lawyer, you start going, okay, if I'm going to collect this judgment, I know that at least some of what one of these assets has been put into this Ace Hat Collection company, and then I got to look and see, like, well, who are they, and what do I know about them? So we're going to show you something about that company. So this is when I look up this company, there's databases you can search for online. This is something from something called Open Corporates, and it shows you information that's sort of gathered and collected from online as to these different companies. And you can see that the only director or officer, other than sort of an agent, which generally is like someone who can take if you get sued, that you go to that person and hand them a lawsuit and say, "Here, you're sued." But the chief executive officer is Austin McBroom. So that heavily suggests that Austin McBroom is going to own something about this company, and I won't be surprised if he's either the sole shareholder, or it could be because he's got wife that she may own shares as well. That's part of the complication of this: is does anyone else own part of this Ace Family YouTube channel, or is it just Austin McBroom? The real question for that is kind of who signed up for it, and has there ever been any kind of move of the YouTube channel into this company or anything else? So you got this company, Austin McBroom is the CEO, he's kind of the one running this, which means that he very likely owns all or part of the shares. They may be held in community property, is what it's called in California, where the husband and wife both own sort of, they're just like co-owners of it. But and if so, you can collect on sort of the collective thing with limits, right, for the wife's share. But so you've got kind of these two possibilities. Has this YouTube channel just been set up and nothing ever done? And in that case, you would kind of see like who set it up and when, and who's that person who owns it. And there might be legal fights over what does Austin McBroom own out of it, how much, to whatever extent he owns it, that can be taken by Jarvis because he's named in the lawsuit. And whatever interest Austin McBroom has can be transferred. If, let's say, it's been moved into this company, or this company or any other company that Austin McBroom owns has some kind of legal right to the channel, to the revenue from the channel, they'll be able to find that out because they'll go and look and see like who is the channel paying. YouTube, if it's monetized, they're paying money to someone. So that's, whoever is getting that money is going to be hard pressed to say they don't have an ownership interest in the channel. If it's a company, then it's actually pretty easy because you just go, what you try to go collect on is the shares of the company. And shares of a company are something that you can go collect in a judgment. It's an asset, owning the shares of a company, and once you get the stock, you control the company. So if Austin McBroom is in control of this company through the stock, then Jarvis can just go take the company, and now he owns the Ace Family trademark. Now if they have rights in the channel, he owns the channel. He becomes the new owner of the company, and now the CEO gets scratched out, and you see Jarvis as the CEO. And there's other rights too, like let's say Austin McBroom only owns part of the company. Well, once Jarvis, if Jarvis can go get any kind of shares in this company, now he as a shareholder has a lot of different rights. He can start inspecting the financials. He can sue the company itself and the other shareholders if they're doing things that are sort of interfering with his rights as a shareholder. It really would just be a total destruction of the ability to operate the business if it's not being operated to Jarvis's benefit if he's the new shareholder. So that's one path. The other path is that let's say Austin McBroom owns the YouTube channel, and he's not going to want to sign it over. He's not going to want to give those rights over. Well, what does Jarvis actually do then? I'm going to show you now a California court case that shows what happens. Okay, so this is a quote from a court case in California. You'll see it's kind of an old one, which little background for non-lawyers or people who've never gone to law school. One of the worst parts of going to law school, or the hardest parts, is you go in and they hand you, your textbooks are not like a college textbook. You basically just get this big book that has no explanation of anything and is just a series of court decisions that are these long, really, really hard to read things that are just kind of, when you are first starting to read these, you have no idea what they're saying. I actually sat there for my first year of law school, and I had this giant box of index cards, because every time I would see some new word that I didn't know what it was or understand what it was, which was lots of them, many of which were in Latin, then you would write down the word and start trying to memorize them so that you actually knew what was going on whenever you were reading these things, which is the first step. So you can see this highlighted sentence here, and this case is one that dealt with a situation. This one was with a patent, and a patent is kind of, I invented something, right? So there used to be ads on late night television that was kind of the old version of a Bitcoin scheme or something. They would tell people, oh, did you invent a automatic toilet plunger that glows in the dark? And there would be stuff like that, and they would say, you're going to be a billionaire. You got an automatic toilet plunger. I mean, everyone's going to buy one of those. And then they would say, oh, and it's because you're going to be so rich on it, hand me $2,000, $3,000, and I'll get you this patent, which is a government document that says you were the only one who can sell an automatic toilet plunger that glows in the dark, and now you're going to be rich. And so that was kind of the people were trying to make money off the dreams of random guys tinkering around in their garage thinking they were going to have had the next great idea. So this is a lawsuit that resulted from someone trying to get ownership of that patent. And a patent is also intellectual property. It's not a physical thing. It's like you're trying to get ownership of this concept essentially. And there's a sentence highlighted that says, "It is clear from the authorities that the trial court has the power to order the appellant to execute a transfer to the purchaser at the receiver's sale, and to order that if appellant fails to make the proper assignment, then an assignment executed by the receiver will pass title to the purchaser." And I know everyone who's not a lawyer is going, "What are you even talking about?" Exactly how I felt my first year of law school. So let's unpack this just a little bit. So you understand kind of what happens to a YouTuber if they get in a lawsuit. So when it says it's clear from the authorities, that's just a name lawyers use for other cases. Legal authority is, so when a judge writes an opinion, certain judges, they're up like this ranking system. And Supreme Court, they write an opinion, everybody has to do what the Supreme Court says. If the California Supreme Court writes an opinion, everybody in every court in California has to do what they say. And then the lower courts control the courts below them, and it just sort of everything rolls downhill. And so this court is saying it's clear from all these other lawsuits I looked at that the trial court, which is the lowest court on the totem pole, has this power to order somebody. Appellant is somebody who does an appeal. And it says to execute a transfer to the purchaser at the receiver sale. So when it's, and you're going to need a ton of flashcards if you want to start learning all this stuff. What this is basically saying is that an assignment that it talks about later is when you are moving property from one person to someone else. I assign my ownership of something, and that actually happened in this Jarvis lawsuit. There's attached to the complaint is an assignment from FaZe Clan to Jarvis of the right to the legal claims. They just sign a piece of paper and they say, "Hey, I'm FaZe Clan. I was your manager. I had the right to this $1 million payment. Jarvis, I am handing you this legal right, and now you are the owner of the right to sue Austin McBroom." And so he did that. He did one of these assignments. It normally requires someone to sign that and to agree to it like a contract. In a person you're suing is never going to do that. Austin McBroom will probably not want to voluntarily sign, "Hey, you own all my interest in the Ace family brand. You all own all my interest in this company. You own all my interest in the YouTube channel." People do not want to sign those voluntarily, so usually it's hard to do it. But what you can do, in this case, it was a sort of court-ordered sale. So they can actually do this down at the courthouse with the clerk. They can force someone who owes money in a judgment to come in and do kind of questioning under oath, which is called a debtor's examination. A debtor is someone who owes a debt, and you can see why you need flashcards now. And so, but what the court can do is they can do two things. They can bring Austin McBroom down to the courthouse if he loses this lawsuit. If it goes to the end and Jarvis gets this judgment, the court can say, "Hey, Austin, you are going to sit here and you're going to sign this document. And if you don't, I'm going to stick you in jail for contempt of court, and you will sit there until you sign the document." And courts have done this to people who, when you were a debtor, when you owe money to someone on a judgment, they will. If you lie under oath, they'll stick you in jail. If you're hiding, they think you're hiding money. There's people they've stuck in jail for a decade or something when they think that person's just lying to the court, secretly has money, won't give it to you or to the person they owe it to. So that's one thing they can do. The other thing they can do is just say, I'm not even bothering with this. I got this clerk here. Clerk's just someone who kind of works for the court. They're going to sign it for you. And so, sorry, Austin, I don't care. This clerk's going to sign it, and then that's legally effective. And now Jarvis is the owner because the clerk has been ordered to sort of sign for you. So these are all ways to basically get around the fact that somebody never wants to pay their judgment sometimes, but that people think they can get around judgments a lot of times when they really can't, and when the consequences of trying to do that can be like the same as murdering someone sometimes or worse, because a court can keep you there forever. And it doesn't happen often, but there are judges who have really nuked people that they thought were just coming to them and lying to them about their money. So this is all. A lot of things have to happen for this to end up in this scenario. Jarvis has to win his lawsuit. It's not going to be default now because Austin McBroom is showing up to fight. They're going to have their big boxing match between the two of them, I guess, in a court of law. And we may see a lot of drama and sparks on this. But if Austin McBroom either can't pay or won't pay, or they fight to the end and Jarvis gets his legal judgment on this, then Jarvis is going to get to pick what he wants. And he may want a 20 million person YouTube channel more than he wants $1 million. And that, frankly, honestly, if you're in the business of YouTube and having a whole new subscriber base that you can go post your videos to and say, hey, come subscribe to the Jarvis channel, or whatever you want to do with it, it might be worth more than $1 million in publicity. So we'll see what happens. It's kind of a crazy case. Lawyers love looking at cases with these kind of very unique legal issues. And if you want to hear more videos about random celebrity or influencer cases and some of the law that governs influencers, then hit the subscribe button, subscribe to my channel, and I'll be doing a bunch more of these on similar kind of topics. So